Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist, and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
New on Curiosity Stream. How do you connect a 16th century potato to limitless energy production? Could Napoleon's toothpick have a direct link to a machine that predicts the future? And how can a 1700s conch shell chart a course to humans connecting their brains to the internet? James Burke's visionary series Connections returns for a new generation. Experience all new Connections. With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.
Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Hello guys, welcome to I've Been Thinking. I'm Elena, and today we have a special guest with us.
Hi, it's me, Allison. Not so special, just a guest.
Okay, anyway, so we are going to be talking about American versus European dog culture. I just want to do a little bit of business before we get started. We are available on Apple Podcasts now, which is super exciting. So if you can, go on there and leave us a, hopefully, 5-star review. Allison, do...
Oh, was that noise? Yeah. I didn't realize that would pick that up.
I'm going to leave that in there.
No, you can keep going.
Okay. We are on Apple Podcasts now, so go ahead and go on there and hopefully leave us a 5-star review
or
if you can.
4.5, like that's fine too.
Yeah.
It really gets her up there.
I mean, I prefer 5,
But 4.5 because I'm sure you've heard me make noises with water bottles or rubbing my leggings or barking in the background.
Yeah, or
kidding.
Winifred barking. Anyway, yeah, if you could go on there and leave us a review, though, that would be really awesome. I posted an announcement on the Instagram the other day, but just so you know, be on the lookout in a few weeks. I'm not positive exactly when. We are going to have an episode where we try to amplify some Black voices, try to use this platform as a space for good, and just share some positivity and just kind of do something to lift up a community using this platform that we've been able to develop. So I'm really excited about that. We're just going to talk about whatever they want. I am really excited about that opportunity and being able to share and hopefully work with some of my friends on that. And my last piece of business is that next month we are doing the Last American Man by Elizabeth Gilbert as our book club of the month. And I feel really bad because last week I forgot Elizabeth Gilbert's name, and I was just like, it was written by this woman. And so I've felt really upset about that for the last week. But she's the author of Eat, Pray, Love, actually.
Really?
Yeah, and she's just really dope. But yeah, so we're gonna read that next week. Anyway, now to get into the actual episode from this crap show of an intro.
Dog culture.
Dog culture. European versus American. Now, I've talked about my puppy Win on here before. She is sitting at our feet right now, actually. And she's definitely been featured in the background of an episode or two. She barked out the window at, the UPS man.
Usual.
Typical. Yeah, very normal. But Win is the kind of dog that I take with me literally everywhere I possibly can. She's just really good. Today she went to Cabela's, Lowe's, Home Goods. She just ran all over with me. So, we've had a few moments here and there throughout her life where she's acted out a little bit, usually because she freaked out with separation anxiety or something. But other than that, she's really trustworthy and she's just really good. And then Allison's puppo, Belle, she's pretty much the same.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, except for
the most part.
She occasionally, if she can't see me, if I walk too far away, she flips out. And
she
know
does.
That's because I got her when she was too little and she had been separated from her mom too early. And that's a whole different story.
It is.
But so she has serious separation anxiety, but otherwise, she's a very friendly dog, so.
She is. She's very friendly, pretty trustworthy, like we said. Taylor would disagree, our other roommate, because Belle ran away one time and Tay had to chase her a mile down the road. But other than that, she, does a lot better now than when she was a puppy, though. And we can trust her pretty well in most social situations, too. But we're always looking for new insights into training and things that we can do to be the best moms we can and have the best little pups we can. So, when the New York Times published an article, which we found right at the beginning, I think, of the pandemic and quarantine here in the U.S., we were super fascinated. Allison and I both love Europe. She lived there for a semester in college. She lived in Amsterdam and Morocco, very briefly visited a long visit to Morocco and lived in Amsterdam. And I like to visit. We just really appreciate the history and the culture and the leisurely pace that they have.
Because we are both very leisurely people.
We are leisurely ladies. So, we also really appreciate learning about the way that they treat their dogs. And we were very intrigued to see a nice breakdown of kind of the differences in how Americans and Europeans treat their pups. So today we are going to hit on two of the major differences between the dog cultures: boundaries and integration into society. So first, boundaries in public. In the United States, it is super common to get stopped all the time when your dog is with you. And, now it's more common that people say, hey, can I pet your dog or whatever.
Yeah, but I know when I was growing up, I was never taught to ask that. And so I find myself even teaching other people's children.
Yeah.
We were walking and one child came up and said, can I pet your dog? And the other kid with him was like, oh, do you have to ask that every time? And so you and I both stopped and said, you should. You don't know if that dog is going to be friendly to you or if that dog might be scared of you. So you need to be kind and aware of that. And he was like, oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah, it is definitely a newer thing that or I guess more people ask that. And it's really nice that it's becoming more of a thing, because then you don't have to tell people, it
doesn't seem as antisocial or rude. Because if you have to, begin the conversation with, please don't pet my dog, or, you don't even have a conversation because you switch to the other side of the street, people definitely misconstrue that as antisocial. So I think that if people can be courteous and ask, then it gives you the opportunity to be an advocate for your dog and say,
yes, ma'am.
No, please don't. Or yes, she would love that. And then it also gives you a chance to prepare your dog for saying hi to someone. Asking your dog to sit or calming them down,
Yeah,
so.
for sure. But it seems that in European countries, it's way less often, or it's way less common to be asked, like, constantly, hey, can I pet your dog, whatever. Which is, I think, a good thing because, one, it keeps the dogs from being put in stressful situations where they could, like, act badly. Which is why it's a good thing that at least in the U.S. people are starting to say, like, hey, can I pet your dog?
Yeah.
And acknowledge that, I guess. But, two, I think it just teaches the dogs to be more chill when people aren't always giving them pets. Because, like, Winnie, when she sees somebody, especially somebody who looks like somebody who would pet her, she just starts wiggling. She wiggles, and she tries to charm them into giving her some pets. And they almost always do.
Yeah, and it's great for you in your case because Winnie is, like, a very friendly dog.
She is,
in other cases, it's just, like, not always.
Right.
You're not going to have the same result. And so I actually read an article that kind of makes me think of, of course my phone would mess up right at this time. Okay, so I read this article that was written by a trainer who lived in the UK, and she had some friends move over, and they were like, well, we want to get a dog here, but we're afraid that we're not going to train it right. And she was saying, like, 75% of the training is going to be done for you by the people in London because we are already socialized to not pet every dog we pass and to not ask about every dog. And those conversations are kept very brief. And so I feel like it led me to believe, like, if we had a general understanding, like in American culture, to not do that and to pass by. Or to not see it as antisocial if someone switches the side of the street with their dog.
Right.
That it would be so much easier for us to raise our dogs to be well behaved.
Yeah, I agree. And, like, I love that Winnie, for example, gets so many pets, and I love that it makes her happy, and I love that, like, she gets to make other people happy.
Yeah.
Like, we saw 2 people today who had Westies, which is what Winnie is, that had recently passed away. And it was, like, really special for them, and they wanted to just know a little bit about her and say hi to her because they had recently lost their Winnies, which I loved that she was able to bring them a little bit of, like, happiness maybe in that time. Or
comfort.
Yeah, a little bit of comfort. But then at the same time, when everybody stops and asks about her and wants to pet her, then that makes her think, okay, everybody's going to pet me. I can walk up to anybody. And that's not the case either.
Also, that's just, like, a little bit of a nuisance for us, I feel
it
like.
Is.
Because it's like, can I shop at Home Goods right now?
Can I just go on my walk? Mm-hmm. Sorry, my phone buzzed. My Urban Outfitters, the rest of it arrived. But yeah, I mean, can I finish my walk? Can I finish my shopping? Like, I don't want to have a conversation with every person I see about her pedigree or where I got her or what she likes to eat, how I groom her. Like,
could you imagine if we, like, asked that about people's kids? If we were like, how old is your kid? What does their bedtime routine look like? Do you swaddle them this way or do you use this method instead?
How long do you walk them every day? I mean, even it's like, anyway.
That's what Facebook groups are for.
Yeah, literally, that's what Facebook groups are for. Get in a mommy group. Anyway. So then, back to the boundaries thing. There's also, I think, a difference in how Europeans teach their children to have boundaries with their dogs, like the dogs in their family, and then also just dogs in general, which is part of the socialization into not freaking out every freaking time you see a dog on the street. Like, when 13-year-olds see Winnie or Belle and they're like, oh my gosh, a dog! I'm like, they're all worked up now. It's going to take them 10 minutes to calm down. Do I really want you to touch my dog right now?
Well, in the U.S., we have the tendency to humanize a lot of things.
Yes.
Not just dogs, but, like, we'll humanize, like, material goods in
Oh,
our
yeah.
homes, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Our cars, like, we give our cars names. That's just
It's
one
true.
example. So, we humanize pets.
Yeah.
To such an extent that I think it contributes to the way that you'll see a child interact with a dog, you know, or a cat,
It's
things
true.
like that. And so, but it's just so hard not to do
It
that.
is. Well,
you know,
I mean,
anything with eyes, I swear, you could put googly eyes on a plant, and I would be like, I'm going to sing you to sleep every night. My plant doesn't sleep. Those eyes are weird, and they probably look in different directions. But if you give it a set of eyes...
Well, my thing is, I guess, I don't know, I mean, I'm an odd person in some ways, but I, like, very much humanize Winnie and Belle, and I love seeing other dogs out, too, but my reaction when I see another dog is like, oh, look at that puppo. Mm-hmm. Look at his little legs, look at his little booty. Mm-hmm. But, like, when I see Winnie and Belle, like, they're very humanized. And I think maybe that's why, to me, I don't want people freaking them out all the time. Because I'm like, you don't... people gush over babies like that. But you don't gush over a toddler like that. You're like, oh, he's so cute. He's so sweet. But it's not like, oh my gosh, let me give you scritches and let me tickle your tummy.
Yeah, I also feel like it's like a general understanding that you don't just like pick up someone's baby.
Yeah.
You know, and like you ask before you touch them, you ask before you say hi, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's interesting, I guess, that there's kind of a humanization of dogs and it makes us, in a way, kind of freak out with them because we like babyfy them, if that makes sense, because they've got those big old eyes and those little round heads and they look like little tiny baby creatures to us. But then at the same time, like, we dehumanize them and we just take away their autonomy at all by freaking out over them like that.
Yeah, that's very true. I didn't even think about that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, which I guess, that goes back into not teaching children the same way in the U.S. as they seem to in Europe, where, like, dogs are kind of treated in the U.S., I think, as more of a toy, like, they're...
as opposed to a pet.
As opposed to, like, a pet or a member of the family, where kids are like, oh, I want to play with the cat, and that means, like, pick the cat up and swing it around, you know, or, like, play with the puppy means, like, or it can mean, like, kind of roughhousing with it and that kind of thing, and that can lead to stressful situations for the dog. Whereas in other places, like what I've read about children being raised with dogs in Europe, they're, like, more aware of not, like, slapping it in the face or something where it's gonna
with it.
Yeah,
that's actually something that I read in a second article with a woman who is a trainer in Europe. I can't remember where exactly, but she made a comment about really stressing the importance of the relationship between a pet and its handler. So I don't like to say master.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not the right word.
I like to say, I've actually been thinking about that recently. I like to say and their person.
Yeah, I think that's neutral enough too. So she says you have to stress the relationship between the person and the pet. And that maintains kind of the hierarchy that you have. Like, no matter what we want to think, our pet is not our equal. Like, at the end of the day, we are their caretaker, and we do need to, you know, make decisions for them that keep them safe and keep us safe and keep others around us safe. And so her, her point that she was making is that the big difference between European dog culture and American dog culture is kind of what you're saying, where, like, here we'll treat them like babies or toys, as opposed to over there when you're stressing that relationship where they're considered more of a pet. It allows you to continue to be an advocate for them and kind of keep other people and other animals at bay, so everyone is safe and you're continually like in a neutral zone.
Yeah, that's really interesting, I guess, because I mean, I think it's really important that people are taught the boundaries and taught that they need to give their pets, you know, their respectful space. But I struggle with that to an extent, because Winnie is my child and Belle is literally your child. Like, there are little babies and will do anything for them. And I think that they both have an understanding of the hierarchy that we have. Winnie the least, because she likes to think she
push boundaries.
Yeah, she pushes boundaries a lot. She's got a big old personality. But they both have a pretty decent understanding, though, I think, of our hierarchy. Winnie just likes to push it. But I like to think that I can still have her as a part of my family, essentially, and not have to have that separation of this is my pet and I am the master. Like, I am her mom and she is my perpetual toddler. And she has some autonomy, but also I have to make some decisions for her. So that kind of, I get it, like 100%, that mindset, but for me it's just really hard because that is my baby.
Well, I think it's important to note that there's a distinction between like how you treat your family at home versus how you treat your family in public.
Right.
And thus, I think that translates to how you treat your pet at home versus in public. So if people saw the weird shit that we did with our dogs in public, like you picking up Winnie's paws and making her dance, and like me trying to like kiss all over Belle's paws so I can convince her it's okay to have them touched, you know, like just the interesting things that we do. If we did those in public, people would think that we were, you know, a little off.
Yeah, they would.
So I think that just keeping in mind when you go into public how you maneuver that space with your pet is important.
It's true.
But yeah, definitely let them be fools at home.
Yeah.
To an extent. But let them be fools.
Yeah.
Let them be little.
That's some live, laugh, love memorabilia.
There you go.
Okay. So next, I guess let's move into our second topic.
Social integration, right?
Yeah, social integration. Yeah. So the fact that dogs are welcome everywhere in Europe, comparatively, I guess, probably not everywhere, but like pretty much everywhere, means that they have significantly more socialization in a wider variety of environments, right? So like they're less likely to be psycho in a restaurant or something because
they have more opportunity to go to a restaurant.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that is just, I think that that's something that we deal with, because like I'll take Winnie shopping with me or wherever. The only place I don't take her is the grocery store or inside of restaurants.
Like places that she's explicitly not allowed.
Yes, exactly. Like I take her to patio restaurants, stuff like that, when she's allowed there, but other than that, take her pretty much anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah. And
people always comment like, oh, I could never bring Rocco. He'd be losing his mind. Because Rocco's
probably been to very many restaurants.
Yeah, he's not been very many places, not been to very many antique stores or whatever. Winnie loves an antique store. And, you know, Rocco probably doesn't, like, leave the property very much. You know, he probably gets plenty of time to run around and stuff, but not, like, in public around lots of people.
So it's kind of like an interesting notion to me that in more European countries, like, people are able to bring their dogs so many places. But then when you are here it's very limited. And I respect that, because we try to keep them out of establishments that sell or serve food. Specifically, those are the two places that I think of. And we're just very aware of where we're taking our dogs, because people are deathly allergic in some instances.
Yeah, it's true.
And I didn't find anything when I was looking up source material that discussed allergies to dogs and how that affects where you can bring your dog in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that probably does affect the policies here. Also, just the FDA probably would not be very happy with us. Would it be the FDA or
stinking FDA, the health department,
the CDC, whatever they
CDC,
the government, the watchers. So they just wouldn't really allow us to do that. But if they were allowed more places, I mean, it's like a child. If you keep them at home all the time,
they don't know how to act when they go out
in public.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I would love to take Winnie into a restaurant, because honestly, she'd be pretty good. She sits in our chairs downstairs right now. The chairs.
The bar stools.
The bar stools, yeah. And, at my parents' house, she will jump up in the chairs at the dining table, and she loves it.
So, I almost feel as if our reluctance to American culture and our society's reluctance to allow dogs or pets in general in public spaces has contributed to the abuse of the service pet program and certifications.
Oh, I think so too.
Because I don't know how many times you and I have had the discussion, let's get our pups certified.
Yeah.
And there are just a lot of people that I am aware of, whether having seen their horror stories online or being told that they unjustly got their dog certified as a service pet or an emotional support dog or things like that, and brought the dog on a plane and the dog bit someone, and then how that always turns out. Or brought the dog in public and the dog didn't have the behavioral skills necessary to be certified as a service pet, and thus caused a ruckus. And so it's selfish of that person, I believe, because it definitely lends itself to a bad reputation for people who do have service animals. But then also just gives more reason and evidence for people to continue to say no pets allowed in this space.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So it's a catch-22 is what it feels like. You do one thing, it's still wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's what my thought is on that.
Yeah. Well, I think that also, off of that catch-22, we can't figure out how to let dogs into spaces. I also think that there's still kind of this mindset, for whatever reason, in the United States, maybe because of how our nation was largely founded by, working class people, where dogs are kind of taboo. They are associated with hunting or working or something like that. And, when you come in at the end of the day with your dog, you say, all right, Jake, go, sleep on the porch or whatever. And they're not, even if they are your best buddy in the field or at work or whatever it is, there is still this kind of separation from them as a part of the family that you see less now, I think, because outside dogs are significantly less
and less
common.
I was gonna say that I think, we both grew up in rural areas, and so I think we saw more of that. But had we lived in somewhere like a downtown area, you don't really see that, because your dogs have to be inside, so they have to be a part of the family.
Right.
There's no option to say okay, go sleep in your nice little heated kennel that I put out there for you, or sleep on the porch. Those dogs would be gone in a second if we did that.
Oh yeah,
they would run away and just be too dumb to find their way back.
Lord. I mean, yeah, I think growing up in rural areas, you see it the most still. And I guess urban areas, you have to step away from having outside animals because they need to be inside for laws or whatever.
Yeah.
But my dogs growing up were always big dogs, but they were always outside dogs because my parents were like, no dogs in the house. And now Winnie sleeps in their bed.
Yeah,
but
that's always fun.
yeah, and runs the house. But yeah, I think it's weird still a little bit that, like, I grew up that way, but I'm still like, why weren't they allowed inside?
You know, I do think that European cities, and oftentimes, like, that's where a large part of the populations are, they're, like, congregated into those really tight-knit spaces, and I think that urban planning, as opposed to the structures of cities and, like, I guess we're just a much bigger, like, spread out country.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, like, we have hotspot cities, right? And I would argue that probably the dog culture within some of those cities is very similar to European dog culture, because the city planning, like, everyone's closer together. Like, you really don't have an option but to take your dog with you places.
Right.
You know, and so we don't have to take our dog everywhere when you live out in the country because it has all that space to roam.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I would just be interested to see if there's any type of relation or correlation between urban planning and, like, city sizes, and just, let me see if I can figure out how to say this. Like, I wrote down, dogs can really go everywhere in the EU, and it seems attributable to the civil planning of the cities as opposed to the layout of the U.S. cities and, like, the countryside.
Right.
And, like, places that don't allow dogs. I don't think that I said that very well. It sounded very convoluted.
It's okay. I get where you're going, because, like, you're saying that the culture inside of American cities, especially larger cities, around dogs is more likely to be more similar to European dog culture because they have similar kind of layout, similar feels, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that the United States is more spread out.
And we have less, I guess, congregation. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
Like, our population has more space.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so much more space. I get what you're saying. That can be... We can leave you all on that note unless you have something else. Yeah, so you can kind of ponder that. Like, do you think that there is a correlation between city planning in Europe and in American hotspot cities, as Al said, versus other areas? That is something really interesting to think about.
Yeah, because I can't help but wonder if that's, like, contributed to, like you were saying, dogs and, like, a working family. Like, dogs, right, at the end of the day stay outside.
Yeah. And they still might get fried chicken, but, like, they sleep on the porch, you know?
They don't get a whole piece, they get a bone.
Nah, if he did a good job, he gets a whole piece, I bet. All right, guys. Well, I really hope you enjoyed listening to us ramble about dogs and our dogs and dog culture.
Yeah, and hopefully we've just kind of provided you with some thought-provoking nonsense so you can take that and apply it to your own experience with your pets. And I would say that the most important thing and the best thing that you can do for yourself and your pet is to be an advocate for them, because they don't have a voice. As many times as we've seen on YouTube, the dog that says, "I love you," I know at the end of the day, the dog can't say anything else. Okay? So it's up to us, you know, as we walk down the street, to just take the initiative to be considered, you know, rude or antisocial, and just switch over to the other side of the street. Don't put your dog in a stressful situation.
Yep.
Respect that your dog may not like all other dogs. I know Belle is very protective over me and Winnie, and if someone comes close, she can get very territorial. And I think we often consider that to be a bad behavior, but if you think about it in, like, an evolutionary perspective, we're her family, we're her people, she wants to protect us, and we shouldn't train that out of dogs, in my opinion.
Right.
And you can't expect your child to like everyone.
Yeah.
I can't expect myself to like everyone.
I sure don't.
So why would I ask my dog to like every dog or every person?
Yeah.
You know? So I think that we just have to continue to respect that they have their own minds, but also be an advocate for them.
Preach. Love it. And
that is what I have been thinking.
Okay, guys. So go, you've listened to this episode. Go like our Instagram if you haven't already, or follow our Instagram if you haven't already.
Leave a review on Apple.
Yes, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I need the 5 stars. Allison will settle for 4.5. I will not. I would like 5 stars. All right. Well, thanks, guys. DM me or email me if you want to chat about anything. I really would love that. Or if you have any ideas. I think I've got a fun episode planned for the end of the month. And also, hopefully soon, an episode where we get to amplify some Black voices and opinions. So I'm really excited about that coming up as well. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening. I hope I gave you some good food for thought. I am Elena Grace, and this was Allison. And we'll talk at you next week. Bye.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist, and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
New on Curiosity Stream. How do you connect a 16th century potato to limitless energy production? Could Napoleon's toothpick have a direct link to a machine that predicts the future? And how can a 1700s conch shell chart a course to humans connecting their brains to the internet? James Burke's visionary series Connections returns for a new generation. Experience all new Connections. With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.